A mixed attacker is a Pokemon that takes advantage of both physical and special attacking options. The flexibility of being able to threaten all kinds of Pokemon no matter what their primary defensive stat is can be extremely powerful. I love mixed attackers. They tend to be some of the most fun and customizable Pokemon to use in competitive play. Let's take a look at some prominent examples of mixed attackers in every single generation of competitive singles. In Gen 1, mixed attacking sets are actually quite common, and there's two main reasons for this. In Gen 1, EVs work a bit differently, and you can actually just max out every single stat, which is obviously the optimal thing to do. So there's no real downside or extra commitment involved in running special attacking or physical attacking options on your Pokemon. You don't have to invest specific EVs into each stat, they're all maxed. And the other reason is just that Gen 1 doesn't have that many move options in general, so often the best thing you can do is chuck a special attack on there for coverage. The primary example of this is Tauros, Gen 1 OU's best Pokemon. And although Tauros is primarily a physical attacker, it uses Blizzard extremely commonly as coverage to hit some of its checks. Even though Tauros has a pretty low special stat of only 70, Blizzard's high power and the powerful freeze effect make up for that massively. And the main thing that Tauros is aiming to hit here is Rhydon, who is a common check. It resists normal, but it gets pretty obliterated by Blizzard. Although Blizzard is the most common option, you can also run Thunderbolt on Tauros as a way to threaten Cloyster. Cloyster is quite a good check to Tauros. It has massive defense and it can shrug off Blizzard. Obviously it's also immune to freeze, but with Thunderbolt you can catch Cloyster off guard, and this can be a great option on teams weak to Cloyster specifically. And the other niche mixed option you see sometimes on Tauros is Fire Blast. Fire Blast has a 30% burn chance in Gen 1, which is pretty good. It can help you win the 1v1 against enemy Tauros sometimes by burning them. It can be a good click against an incoming Snorlax. Fire Blast is used more for the burn chance than for fire coverage. Blizzard is the better move for general coverage, but Fire Blast's burn chance can be useful. Another great mixed attacker, Snorlax, who commonly uses Blizzard and even Amnesia to buff its special stat up and hit even harder with Blizzard. But you don't even need Amnesia for this to be effective, honestly. You can just run coverage, and Blizzard, just as an attack on its own, is useful to hit Rhydon and hit freeze chances. Sometimes you see Ice Beam, because it has more PP and more chances to freeze, which can be good in more passive matchups. And Surf is an option you see sometimes too, because it's ×4 super effective against Rhydon. Zapdos is another good mixed attacker, using both Thunderbolt and Drill Peck. This is kind of a situation where Zapdos uses Drill Peck mostly because it doesn't have much else. I'm sure if it did have Blizzard it would use that, but it doesn't. But Drill Peck is quite good. It hits grass types which resist electric, and it's also useful to hit Chansey a bit harder. Chansey obviously shrugs off the Thunderbolts but takes a bit more from the physical Drill Pecks that are stab boosted. Zapdos has a decent attack stat too of 90 base, which isn't bad. Now, this one is definitely an instance of this fella simply having nothing else, but Jolteon with its measly 65 base attack indeed uses double kick to threaten Chansey. I don't even think it does that much, but what's nice about it is that you get 2 crit chances because they're 2 individual hits, and Jolteon actually has quite a high crit chance because in Gen 1 crits are based on speed. The higher your speed stat is, the higher base crit chance you have. So with 2 chances to crit, you can sometimes break through Chansey with this fella, which is useful. Another option you see sometimes on Jolteon is Pin Missile. I don't know if this is popular these days. I remember this back in the day to hit Exeggutor because it's ×4 super effective, but it's pretty bad. It's like 2 to 5 hits. Low power, you have no attack. I don't love this option. It's not even the default set on Smogon anymore, but Exeggutor is a pretty good check to this guy. It resists electric, so maybe it's useful in some teams. Speaking of Exeggutor, here he is, one of the best Gen 1 Pokemon, a famous Pokemon worldwide, who uses Double Edge as a way to hit Blissey. Blissey obviously shrugs off Psychic Stab, so Double Edge is another way to threaten Blissey without having to blow up and lose your whole Exeggutor. I guess you could technically call Explosion also a mixed option, but I don't really count it because it's more of a... I almost think of old gen Explosion as a utility option. You don't even need an attack stat for this move to be good. But another option Exeggutor sometimes uses is Egg Bomb, because instead of having a recoil, it just has a bit lower accuracy, same power. Yeah, Double Edge only has 100 power in Gen 1. That's kind of crazy, isn't it? Egg Bomb, I remember using this set. I don't think this one's popular anymore. Even though Articuno is not an OU Pokemon in Gen 1, folks, it's a viable choice. It's a niche pick. It's my personal favorite Pokemon in this metagame. With this massive 125 base special stat, your Stab Blizzard is an insanely powerful special attack, and mixed coverage really helps. Double Edge helps you hit Chansey. Hyper Beam helps you finish stuff off too. Two beautiful mixed options for Articuno, folks. To kick off Gen 2, of course, we got to talk about Snorlax, the best Pokemon in the whole game. Now, this guy can do everything in the world, but one of the things in the world is being a mixed attacker, and this is the generation where Snorlax's mixed attacking options are probably at their most most useful. Just like Gen 1, you can max out every single stat in Gen 2, so there's no commitment to running mixed sets, which is beautiful for Snorlax. It can run options like Thunder to hit Cloyster and Skarmory without even committing to investment in special attack. Cloyster is a really common defensive Pokemon in Gen 2, so being able to just threaten it super effectively and have this massive chance to para is beautiful. You can also run Fire Blast if you want. This helps you hit Skarmory and also Forretress super effectively. You can run Surf, this lets you hit Golem, who's pretty common. Flamethrower if you prefer a more accurate move to hit the steals. You can even run multiple mixed options if you want. Snorlax is so customizable and versatile in this format, you can really mix and match whatever you want. Up next we have Nidoking, not really a relevant Pokemon in Gen 1, but got a big glow up in Gen 2, and is one of the format's best mixed attackers because of its vast move pool mostly. Gets the beautiful ground ice coverage combination. These two types hit a lot of stuff. Obviously the flying types that are immune to ground, the grass types that resist ground, so just Earthquake Ice Beam is a beautiful combo on its own. Thunder really helps too, to hit Skarmory, Cloyster, Para stuff. You can also run Fire Blast on this fellow if you want. Isn't that lovely? Isn't that incredible? This is one of the only gens where you're going to see a mixed Golem set be decent. This guy has 55 base special attack, but Fire Blast with its high power and of course the fact that you don't have to invest in special attack to hit hard with it, gives Golem the viable option of running Fire Blast for mixed coverage. Hit Skarmory and Forretress, two of Golem's biggest rivals in the world. What an epic moment. Tyranitar debuted in Gen 2, and I mean, look at this fella's stats. We've got a pretty solid special attack stat, massive attack stat. This guy was born to be a mixed attacker, and from this gen onwards, you're going to see Tyranitar in every single gen pretty much, except when he started to fall off, when they nerfed him unjustly. But in Gen 2, Pursuit is a special move, so this is literally Rock Slide and Pursuit stab combo is a mixed combo. Tyranitar commonly uses Fire Blast as coverage. This is a great Pokemon. It traps Gengar and some Psychic types. The Rock Fire combo hits stuff, and Roar is great utility. And finally, I thought I'd shout out a slightly unorthodox pick. We got Typhlosion, who is kind of like the original Blaziken with the fire fighting coverage. Dynamic Punch, obviously inherently unreliable, but in this metagame with Snorlax everywhere, it's a decent gamble to go for, the 50-50 on Dynamic Punch. It'll at least scare Snorlax enough to not stay in, which is useful. Yeah, Fire Grass Fighting is a really good combo that hits a lot of stuff, and Earthquake is cool coverage too. That can help you hit Raikou or Tyranitar if you don't want to risk Dynamic Punch missing or other such rock types. Before we move on to the Gen 3 section first, let me take a quick drink of water out of my famous Iron Mugulus mug, which I purchased over at JimothyCool.com. Isn't that excellent? Here we are in the best generation with some of the most epic mixed attackers you're ever going to see. And chief among them I think is Salamence, the most famous and popular, most potent and successful mixed attacker in this format. This is the most popular Salamence set. It has near perfect coverage with fire, grass and fighting being an amazing combination. Brick Break hits Tyranitar, Blissey. Other rock types. Fire hits, Skarmory. Grass types, Celebi, Heracross, bug types. And HP Grass hits Swampert, water types that resist fire. It's just a beautiful combination. Salamence has very solid attack and special attack, making it a perfect contender for a mixed attacker. Dragon Claw also rounds the set out with some stab, but you can run more fringe options too. Some sets go Wish to heal up teammates. As you force things out, you can use that free turn for heals. Roar is another option you see sometimes. Can help you rack up spikes, chip damage, or defeat boost sweepers. You can also even use Rock Slide, which commonly if you use Rock Slide you would go to plus speed nature so that you can outrun enemy fire types like Moltres and Charizard more consistently, and Rock Slide punishes those with a big super effective ×4 hit, and it also helps out against Zapdos. Here we have Tyranitar, the king of the whole metagame, the #1 Pokemon, famous for its versatility in move pool, which of course lends itself well to mixed attacking sets. This is a set pioneered by the player UD that just invests in max special attack, max speed, and uses 4 attacks for maximum coverage. Fire, Grass, Ice Fighting is beautiful. Similar idea to the Salamence set to threaten as wide a variety of Pokemon as possible. Although Salamence fills out its set with Dragon Stab, Tyranitar chooses Ice Beam usually as a way to hit Flygon, which is a common check to Tyranitar. Salamence in the lead slot, common lead. You can also hit Grass types more accurately than Fire Blast can. You can hit Dugtrio if it tries to come in and trap you. And as expected folks, this set is also quite customizable. I like to run Rock Slide bad sometimes over Ice Beam, as it helps you out versus Zapdos, more bulky variants of Zapdos, and the fire types Moltres and Charizard. If you notice, if you're running Ice Beam here, you're actually kind of walled by Moltres, because Moltres comes in on Fire Blast, and Ice Beam doesn't threaten Moltres very much, it's neutral. But if you're running Rock Slide, you can turn the tables on their Moltres very easily. Speaking of Pursuit, this is the standard set that you see most of the time, max special attack, max health, with Roar as the default option on Smogon, but actually, there are a lot of common physical attack options that are used on this set that round things out. Brick Break is probably the most common these days because it hits Blissey, which is pretty important, otherwise Blissey would totally wall this set. In a similar vein, you can also do Focus Punch, which is a bit less consistent than Brick Break because it can fail if they Seismic Toss you or hit you, but it helps out a lot versus not only Blissey, but an enemy Tyranitar switching in. As you can notice, that an enemy Tyranitar could actually wall this set completely. It resists everything, but Focus Punch turns the tables. You can go Rock Slide here once again to hit Moltres and Charizard, and one of my personal favorite options is Earthquake, which helps you check Jirachi, specifically Calm Mind Jirachi, because even though you have Fire Blast which hits Jirachi, sometimes they can Calm Mind enough that Fire Blast is doing peanuts, but Earthquake, you can actually switch straight into a Calm Mind Jirachi and still check them, while also having the utility of trapping Gengar. Charizard is another great mixed attacker. It primarily uses Focus Punch as its form of physical damage output. Sub-Focus Punch combo can punish Blissey or Tyranitar switch-ins, and it's the same coverage as those mixed Salamence and Tyranitar sets, Fire, Grass, and Fight. Your Fire Stab is much more powerful than both Salamence and Tyranitar, and Focus Punch, if it works out, also hits a little bit harder than Brick Break does. It's a bit riskier though. There's mind games involved. This is an extremely powerful set. It also sometimes doesn't live very long because Substitute sacrifices health. It's a bit frail. This is usually a temporary value generator that poses a threat in the short term, tries to break through the enemy's core with this wide coverage. There's also the Beat Up set, which more directly targets Blissey. I don't know if this even counts as a mixed option because it doesn't use your attack stat in the calculation. It uses the attack stat of your team members and you, which is weird. It also doesn't factor in EVs at all or natures, just base stats. It's a bizarre move in Gen 3 and it only works this way in Gen 3. Technically it's a physical attack, but it doesn't, you can just go minus attack nature and still hit hard with it against Blissey specifically. Very weird option, thought I'd mention it for a moment. Metagross is another very good mixed attacker. Psychic and Steel are actually pretty nice complementary stab types because Meteor Mash can threaten, Tyranitar super effectively, but Tyranitar's immune to Psychic, but Psychic can threaten the physical walls that try to come in on Meteor Mash quite nicely, like Swampert or Flygon, Pokemon like this. Hidden Power Fire helps round things out by threatening Skarmory. This is a nice set on mixed offense teams and more aggressive teams in general. Psychic Stab is great against Gengar. Another alternative route you can go with a set like this is do Thunder Punch as your way to hit water types and also Skarmory, and then you go Hidden Power Grass. Electric Grass is a nice combo because if they see that you have Thunder Punch, you can lure them in on Swampert and hit Swampert with a surprise ×4 super effective hit. These sets also commonly run an Earthquake as a way to hit Magneton, because otherwise you would be totally vulnerable to Magneton with this combo of moves. As you can see, all resisted by Magneton. Earthquake patches that up for you. And you can do without Mash on this set well enough. Swampert is another great mixed attacker, folks. If you go in a more aggressive direction with Swampert, this water-ground combo is really hard to switch into. Ice Beam rounds it out perfectly, threatening Salamence and Celebi, who would otherwise give you problems. And Focus Punch is the icing on the cake, which can chunk like Snorlax coming in, trying to come in on Hydro Pump, Blissey, of course, Tyranitar, fellas trying to rest or whatever. This is a beautiful set. One of my favorite sets in the format. Mixed Swampert, aggressive Swampert. And finally, I'll talk about mixed Zapdos. This is a fairly niche Zapdos set, but it's kind of good. Zapdos' base attack is not bad, and with Drill Peck, Stamped Drill Peck, you can hit not only Heracross and Breloom better, ×4 super effective, so you just one-hit KO them. Helps a lot on teams that are particularly weak to those fighting types, but it also hits Celebi, who is otherwise a really solid check to Zapdos, especially the T-Bolt HP Grass set. Celebi totally stonewalls those sets, but Drill Peck hits them with the surprise coverage. Some sets also go HP Fighting as a way to hit Tyranitar and Blissey super effectively. Requires a bit more attack investment if you do that. I feel like those sets are a bit gimmicky and the hidden power type is better spent on Grass or Ice usually, but on some teams this can be worthwhile as a lure. And there are many more niche ones I could talk about, folks, like Blaziken. You can even go mixed Jirachi. Pursuit Aerodactyl, does that count? I don't know. Mixed Celebi with Ancient Power. Who knows, folks? There's a million options. Flygon can run Fire Blast. We could be here all day talking about Gen 3 OU, but we have to move on sometime. attack. Gen 4 is also full of powerful mixed attackers, folks. Crunch became a physical move in this gen now that the physical special split is introduced, and that made Fire Blast for coverage even more useful on a pursuit trapping set like this, because it can hit Skarmory and other steel types like Jirachi that are trying to defeat you. Other options you can use are Ice Beam and Thunderbolt. Probably Thunderbolt is not that common in this format, but Ice Beam you do see because it hits Flygon and other things. Speaking of Flygon, here he is, one of the best mixed attackers, despite a very low special attack stat of only base 80, with the support of Life Orb and also the high power of the all-new move Draco Meteor. 140 base power, jeez. This guy can operate as a mixed attacker. Draco Meteor, with new lower special attack, it's not a huge deal because you have Physical Earthquake in the back for additional damage on the other side of things. This set can be really good at luring in Skarmory. What's cool about this is when you click Earthquake and they go Skarmory, since they're immune it doesn't proc your Life Orb and they might expect you to be a Choice Scarf or Choice Band set. You hit him with the surprise Fire Blast and it's all over. And Roost helps this set get some longevity. This is one of my favorite sets in Gen 4, I really like this one. Infernape is a famous mixed attacker. This guy has pretty nice attack stats for the time. By today's standards this wouldn't be excellent, but it was good for the time. Good stamp types for mixed sets too, following in Blaziken's footsteps. The high power of close combat certainly helps. You don't need that much attack stat to pose a huge threat. As you can see, this set here invests mostly in special attack because close combat is just that good on its own. Another option you can do is Overheat if you prefer something more accurate than Fire Blast. That also hits a bit harder, but Fire Blast is good too. Some of these sets run HP Ice for coverage, I believe. I've seen that before. And Grass Knot is cool too. It mid-grounds Tyranitar and other stuff like water types. U-Turn is also great for pivoting. I think this kind of set has fallen out of fashion a little bit in the modern Gen 4 metagame, but still there's not that many fast mixed attackers like this in the format, so it still certainly has its place. You can definitely build around it and see success with something like this. Now Dragonite, you could actually run mixed Dragonite sets in Gen 3, but they weren't as good as Salamence. They were largely outclassed, but when Dragonite got access to Draco Meteor, that changed. I guess in a way Dragonite is still outclassed by Salamence, because Salamence is banned from Gen 4 OU. It's an Uber's Pokemon. Dragonite is the next best thing, and it's very good. Draco Meteor, insanely powerful off Life Orb. Fire Blast, really good coverage for steel types. Superpower, incredible to hit Tyranitar. Extreme Speed is priority. This is a really good set. Dragonite has other sets it can run. It uses Choice Band sets, Dragon Dance sets, but the mixed set is my personal favorite. Now, Jirachi is a contender for #1 Pokemon in Gen 4, but a mixed attacking set is not exactly the first thing that comes to mind when you see Jirachi. This is an extremely versatile Pokemon that you can use in a lot of different ways. The most common are usually defensive Jirachi sets with Wish Protect, Iron Head, Body Slam, something like that. You also see Choice Scarf sets, Calm Mind sets, but another way you can go is just a 4-attack mixed set like this. Iron Head, some physical coverage, and Grass Knot, which helps out versus threats like Tyranitar, Hippo, water types, maybe the occasional Suicune. This is certainly a Pokemon. And finally, I thought I'd give a bit of respect to Electivire. This guy was OU back when Gen 4 was current. Now it's like never seen in the metagame. I think back then everyone was just incorrect about Electivire. It's not actually that good, but I think this guy's cool. I remember using him on one of my first Gen 4 OU teams I ever made on Pokemon Online, and I used some set like this with Thunderbolt. Cross Chop is the mixed option, and Flamethrower. Ice Punch, this guy has really cool coverage. One of the few physical electric types. Unfortunately, it doesn't really get much good physical electric stab. I think it might get Wild Charge. No, not even. It gets Thunder Punch. That's its best. I mean, come on. You'd rather just use Thunderbolt at that point. Epic Pokemon. When it gets this Motor Drive speed boost and you start going in with the mixed coverage, sometimes it can be alright. Maybe we should revisit Electivire. Is it as bad as we thought? Maybe it was good all along. The geniuses back then knew all about it. Gen 5 was the first time Garchomp was allowed in OU, and it thrived with this mix set. This is one of the best mixed attacking sets in Gen 5, and this set remained relevant for years to come. With Draco Meteor, the high power of this move supplements the low special attack, much like Flygon last generation, very similar, but Garchomp has access to Stealth Rock, its attack stat is much higher. So, with not even much investment, this Earthquake is still really scary. Fire Blast, with the new Pokemon Ferrothorn in the metagame, Fire Blast coverage is all the more valuable. And Skarmory's still here, of course, so Fire Blast still doing the same job it always did. And Tyranitar is yet again a premier Pokemon in the Gen 5 metagame, one of the best Pokemon in the whole format, and auto-include on any Sand archetype, obviously, with Crunch Pursuit being even more valuable in this generation than the two prior, arguably, with threats like Latios, Alakazam, Reuniclus running around that are so useful to Pursuit Tramp, and Fire Blast helps out so much against Ferrothorn. Ice Beam can be used to help out against Landorus Therian, a new Pokemon. Tyranitar's mixed coverage is even more useful than ever before, arguably. Iron Black is a fun Pokemon to use. I mean, look at this thing, it's idiotic. What's funny about this guy is they forgot to give him an Ice physical move. Maybe that was an intentional choice to keep it from being too broken. but because of that, it uses Ice Beam as its Ice Stab option. Doesn't really get much else except Freeze Shock, which requires you to charge up. Sometimes you can go Freeze Shock Power Herb as a way to instantly use Freeze Shock once. Kind of like the original Z move, but not a common option because it means you can only use an Ice move a single time. Not very good. Ice Beam, off the back of a pretty high special attack stat, to be honest, is really nice. Ice Beam is nice to hit Landorus Therian, Garchomp at the same time. You can hit Garchomp without activating Rough Skin. Fusion Bolt is beautiful coverage to hit Skarmory. Another mixed option you can sometimes see on this guy is Earth Power to help you out against both Magnezone and Heatran. Other steel types too, the occasional Jirachi might wool you. This Pokemon's actually ranked in UU, but I think it's really good in OU. Tornadus. I really like it on rain teams as a mixed threat with Superpower, which can hit Tyranitar. Even though you do get Focus Blast, which is a special attack taking advantage of your invested side more, I prefer Superpower for the accuracy. I think it's really useful also to hit Ferrothorn. I really like this Pokemon, and I almost don't know if this one counts, but Landorus Therian in this generation commonly uses Hidden Power Ice purely to hit enemy Landorus Therian and other useful targets like Dragonite, Gliscor, Garchomp that are times 4 weak to Ice. There's just so many things times 4 weak to Ice that just running Hidden Power Ice is often really useful. Gen 6 introduced some powerful fellows. Diancie Mega has... Who made this guy? 160 both attack and special attack. It has Moonblast for Fairy Stab and Diamond Storm for Rock Stab, which lets you hit fire types that would otherwise resist your fairy moves, like Charizard Mega and Victini and stuff like that. Earth Power helps you hit Heatran. This is a powerful Pokemon, and they also gave it Magic Bounce. I always thought this Pokemon was so annoying. One of my least favorite Pokemon, to be honest, but certainly a very powerful mixed attacker. Mega Charizard Y in Gen 6 would sometimes run Earthquake as a mixed option to hit Heatran specifically. This was not always used. Sometimes they use Focus Blast instead because it can hit both Heatran and Tyranitar, which is sometimes worth it, but I always really liked the Earthquake option because it's more accurate. Charizard Mega has a decent base attack stat of 104, so I think this option improves the consistency of this set, and it's really nice fire, grass, ground coverage. I learned this today, folks, but sometimes Heatran sets would run Stone Edge because there are so many common rock-weak Pokemon in this format that Heatran wants to be able to threaten. Volcarona is one of them. With this, you can outrun it with the Scarf and threaten to KO it. Another one is Talonflame, who I think has fallen off more in the modern metagame, but it's nice to at least check it. This guy used to have Gale Wings, which pre-nerf was really good. And of course, Charizard Mega Y, who is a very good central Pokemon. Being able to threaten this is really nice because you can come in, you're immune to the fire move, and if they think they can hit you with Earthquake, you're actually faster and catch them off guard with Stone Edge, which is a really good surprise option. In Gen 6, you see a lot of Tornadus Therian sets that are more aggressive with Life Orb and Hurricane Superpower Knockoff as this mixed attacking set. Really good. Threatens a huge portion of the metagame. You're fast with that 121 base speed, you have decent offensive stats in both areas, and Superpower is so nice to hit Blissey and Chansey, the guys that can tank special hits. Tyranitar, of course, who is especially bulky and resists Hurricane. This is a really powerful threat, and of course in this gen both Garchomp and Tyranitar commonly use different mixed sets. Same as usual really. Gen 7 saw the release of one of the most epic Pokemon of all time, Como-O. I love this fella. He's got the Comonium Z Clanging Scales move, which is a big special attack that hits you with a massive base power move that also increases all his stats by 1. This move was designed by a maniac. Not only do you boost up both your attack and special attack, you have a special attacking dragon coverage move with a pretty high base power, 100 accuracy, and no special attack downside like Draco Meteor has. And then you have Stab Close Combat and Poison Jab, which is important coverage to be able to hit fairy types that resist dragon and fighting. On the right teams, this thing is a monster. In this generation, Magearna was introduced, who became one of the premier both offensive and defensive Pokemon, and it would commonly use Iron Head on sets like this, these bulkier Assault Vest sets, because Iron Head is a bit better to 1v1 Clefable, who can sometimes Carmine out of range of your Stab Flash Cannon. If you run a physical option instead, you can get the jump on them. It also helps to have the 30% flinch chance. Tapu Koko is an interesting one because it has really high attack and low special attack, but most of its sets tend to be special attack just because of its move pool. But you would commonly see it use this Wild Charge with Electrium Z for the big physical nuke off the back of its higher physical attack, plus the Electric Terrain boost, and then Hidden Power Ice just to round out the coverage. Even with the lower power of Hidden Power in Gen 7 was a really good option that helped out a lot. You'd also sometimes see Dazzling Gleam just for fairy stab on these sets, which was also very good. Tapu Koko did not get a fairy physical stab option of any kind, so that's very useful. When I was playing Gen 7 a lot, I used to see Earthquake on Mega Latias as a way to hit it. Heatran quite commonly, but apparently more of them start to run Hidden Power Ground now. This is the Smogon set, default set. I remember Earthquake being quite good, but maybe Hidden Power Ground has become more popular because it plays around burn. I think Earthquake is probably still a viable option on this though, to hit Heatran, who would otherwise totally wall you. And Mega Diancie still exists and is powerful, so does Garchomp, so does probably Tyranitar, can still run mixed sets. These fellas did not fall off. Now, I wasn't very active in the Gen 8 OU metagame, but there's actually a lot of mixed attackers here. I never knew this. Dragapult commonly uses this set with Dragon Darts and Fire Blast, and probably some of these more support sets that use like Hex and Dragon Darts with Will-O-Wisp, something like this, and then a mixed miscellaneous option in the back like Substitute. Dragapult is another one of those Pokemon with a high attack stat, but not many physical attacking options, so you often see it just run Dragon Darts as a flex slot on more special attack focused sets. Octozolt, this abomination of nature, was apparently a mixed attacker folks with Bolt Beak, which is a like Vicious Rend but not as good because more things are immune to it, plus it doesn't have the strong jaw boost, and Blizzard for stab damage in the hail because this was used on Slush Rush teams with probably Ninetales Alola, I would assume. Yes, that's correct. This is kind of cool, I suppose. This is a funny Pokemon. Aegislash. Let me tell you something, folks. I actually came up with this set very early on in the Gen 8 metagame. There's a video on my channel from ages ago. There's a solid chance I'm the first person to ever use a set like this, Specs Aegislash with Shadow Sneak, but I guess there's no solid evidence of that, but I arrived at it independently anyway, which makes me smart. This was a cool set because, you know, Shadow Ball became really powerful. Stab, especially with Pursuit now deleted from the game. Since Aegislash in its sword form still has really high attack, Shadow Sneak is probably the most useful last slot, just so it can finish off low health fellows and do a bit of physical damage if it needs to. I've been told by trusted sources that the Pokemon Volcanion would sometimes use Superpower as a way to threaten Blissey. Sounds useful to me. Victini uses this set with Glaciate commonly as a way to hit Landorus Therian, Dragonite, and also lower the enemy's speed, which can be useful for a follow-up V-Create or Bolt Strike. Sometimes Heatran sets would use Heavy Slam in this generation too, I have been told, as a way to hit Clefable, the powerful fairy type. And now here we are in the current day. Generation 9. And I think the flagship mixed attacker of Gen 9 is definitely Iron Valiant, with a fairy fighting type combination, pretty evenly distributed offensive stats, and a vast array of both physical and special attacking options. This is the first explicitly mixed attacking Pokemon in a while. This simple combination of Moonblast, Close Combat, and Psyshock hits a lot. And for flex options there is of course Shadow Ball, Shadow Sneak as a priority option, Knockoff, which is quite good in a metagame full of Slowking Galarian. Dragapult still uses mixed sets pretty commonly, in particular this Will-O-Wisp Hex Dragon Darts set is probably the most popular. When I first saw Enamorus, I thought that this would be the most popular way to use it, with a mixed attacking set using Superpower and Contrary, physical coverage that boosts up your attack and defense. Actually, the most popular sets are not this, they are Choice Specs and Carmine and Choice Scarf apparently. I thought this would be the premier one. I was incorrect, I think. This set's still viable, I would say. And another funny development is that Landorus Therian now commonly uses Grass Knot as a way to hit Great Tusk. It also helps if like Terra Water Garganical is a problem or Dondozo is an issue. I thought there would be more mixed attackers in Gen 9 to be honest, but not really. I'm looking through all these and there's not that many. I think I covered them all, but correct me if I'm wrong folks. Maybe there's some niche examples here and there of mixed options propping up, but nothing too metagame relevant as far as I know. Thanks for watching folks. This video was a Patreon video voted on by the gamers. Congratulations to Dan for having the winning suggestion. Become a patron to vote on video topics and suggest some of your own. And thank you as well to everyone who has donated to my Gen 3 OU tournament, ADV Revival.
Whoa! KO'd by one hit! It scattered light!
The money got different, cause of what I'm spending.